there's some problem with this pulling over.
10 versus 90.
Okay, we're up here. Let's go back to my Zoom meeting. And right on time. Good Monday morning, folks. I'm Melissa Schwartz. It is a Monday morning and another Monday Mastermind. I am excited to pass the torch this morning. We'll be talking about title commitments, and that is not my area of expertise. So we have here Art and Roberta from ROC Title. We're going to do a little switch here of seats, and you guys, I hope you're ready for some information, because you need to be looking at these title commitments when they come in. And I personally know they often come in with links in them and no attachments. You have to click those links and look through to see what those reports say. So just a reminder, that is your responsibility as an agent to review those and make sure your client is reviewing those. And oftentimes when there are no attachments, people go, oh, there's nothing there for me to look at, so I'm just going to pass that message by. Please don't do that. If your title company is emailing you, please open those emails. Please talk to your clients about it as well, to get them to open their emails and read what is happening about the property they're looking at purchasing. And hopefully they'll talk about some of the oddities that could occur in some of those title reports. All right, so Art, you gonna switch chairs? Okay, we'll get out of here, right? Might have to raise that up because you're taller than I am.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Hope everybody had a great weekend. And unfortunately, we all had to come back to work on Monday, but here we are doing it, okay? So let me see if I can find a link here.
You want me to share your
Oh,
screen?
yeah, share screen.
Hold on, don't go anywhere. All right, let me share the screen. Okay. Let's see. That is an interesting one. I don't know whether that's where I'm supposed to be sharing, but we'll try it. The document we wanted was, let's see where it went. How about that? Okay. So let's get rid of this. And you make that a little bit larger so people can see it. Might have to scroll slowly so you don't make anybody.
All right, perfect. Okay, everybody, let's kind of just dive into this, because this is some information that you definitely gonna need to know. This here is the first page of the commitment. It basically tells us our underwriter here is issuing this First American Title, their headquarters and stuff. This one's coming out of Tucson because it's a Pima County property. We are showing here the very first thing here in the Schedule A's. It shows us the date and the time that the commitment was pulled. You're probably not familiar with this, but with the title plants, they're usually anywhere from 5 to 10 days out. And when I say that, that means something that records today in the county doesn't actually become visible to us to see within 5 to 10 days from the time it's recorded. So they give you the date and the time of when this was actually done, because it's not in real time. Just because of uploading and inputting and all that stuff from the digital recording to get it into the platform we use to search the records. After that, number 2 here shows what type of policy we're doing, which is the homeowners here, which is the most extended one for coverage for the buyer. It shows our proposed buyer right here, who they are, their marital status. A lot of times we don't get the marital status right off the bat, so we don't know if it's a single person, we don't know if it's a married couple, we don't know if John Doe and Jane Smith are married. Are they brother and sister? Are they just friends? You know, so we don't know how they're going to take title. We just know that these 2 individuals are going to take ownership to this property. And then this is something that we inquire about as we go through the process of the escrow transaction. It shows they're getting a property. The insurance is $240, so that's the homeowner's title policy there. Next one down, B, is for the loan policy, the loan they're getting. At this point, we don't know who the lender is, so it says who to be determined. This is a hard money lender. The loan amount will be for 210,000, so that's what the insurance will be for. As we go down farther here, it shows us that it's fee simple, and basically they're just gonna take title to ownership. They're having their invested interest when they take title. The current title is in the name of Andrew Johnson, an unmarried man, though, so that's recorded deed on the property, and that's who the owner of the property here. That's who our seller is. So as we go down, the legal description, as you see here,
Can I interject?
sure,
If Andrew Johnson got married during the transaction, but this shows unmarried, then what?
then when we go to convey it, since he had ownership prior to marriage, the new spouse does not have ownership in the property. Unless he puts her on title. He owned it before her, so she has no right to it. So when we go to convey this, we would convey it as Andrew Johnson, a married man, as sole and separate property, sole and separate, who acquired it as an unmarried man. So they have record of it that he's married now, but he actually took ownership and he was unmarried, so his spouse has no right to it. That way she can't come back later and say, hey, you guys sold this property. I had half ownership in it. You need to give me my money because my husband ran out on me. Well, we have show proof that she never had any interest in it because he owned it before they were married. Okay, good question. Good question.
Thanks.
Okay, and then here it shows here the exhibit 1. That's a legal description, which is an attachment. We'll get to that as we go along the commitment. The second page here is going to be exhibit. This is what the new loan. This is the new loan information, but we don't know exactly who it is yet, so we haven't recorded anything yet. But we do know it's going to be for 210,000. Okay. And then next we're going to go to the third page, which this here has our requirements. Schedule B, Part 1, requirements. This is our requirements. These are all the things that we title have to satisfy so that when the new owner takes ownership of the property, takes title to the property, we have all these requirements have been met and have been satisfied. This is what we're ensuring that these are all taken care of. I've been told to refer to it as my Bible, because these things, if I don't do these things, I leave my company open for risk down the road and title claims. Okay, and they don't like that when that happens. They had to pay.
They do not like
They had to
that.
pay out. They don't like that. So these first 5 are basically just general information for us. The cover requirements, the documents, the recording that we're going to collect the fees. We're going to make sure ownership's correct. And then here compliance with the county, their statutes of the document requirements to be recorded and how the document has to be set up and everything. Down after that is 6. Good old big brother, taxes always comes first, comes before the mortgage, comes before anything. This one here shows that we have to pay the second half of the taxes. Okay, the first half has been paid. We need to collect and we need to pay the second half, and then pay the remaining of the first half of 2024 to make sure that all taxes are current when the new owner takes ownership to the property. Next one after that is number 7. This here is showing that this is properties in Marana. There's a Marana Water District. So we have to do is we have to go through, we have to contact the Marana Domestic Water Improvement District. We need to see if there's any transfer fees. And it tells you right here, if there's any transfer fees, if there's any assessment, if there's any late charges. But what we're doing basically is we're ensuring the new owner, when they take ownership, that everything is current. Everything's been paid. Everything's been, any assessment, any transfer fees, any back taxes, everything's been paid when they take ownership. Okay, that's what we're ensuring to them, to the new buyers. Next comes number 8 is the current deed of trust. This is the current mortgage that's on the property. Okay, now we're gonna start getting into some ugly stuff here. This isn't bad. I mean, the deed of
This is all
trust,
pretty normal.
this one so far, this is pretty normal. Okay, but I'm gonna tell you right now, it's gonna get ugly real quick. But so this is standard in deed of trust. They got a loan on it. So we'll get his payoff information. We'll get his social security number. We'll contact his lender. We'll ask for a payout. We'll say, okay, we're gonna close on April 4th. So we need a payout good to April 4th or April 7th, depending on how your escrow officer wants to handle it. Usually we go a couple days past the closing date just to make sure we have enough funds for it. Then we go down, and the next requirement, and actually now if you go look at this one here, this one got a little ugly right here. Okay, They're still referencing that previous deed of trust, and they're stating here that the beneficial interest of the deed was transferred to Nation Star on an assignment, okay? A recorded right here, a substitution of trustee. Us in title, when we see a reporting of a substitution of trustee, we know this thing's probably getting ready to go to foreclosure or is in foreclosure. That's usually the first thing they do is they substitute the trustee, they give it to a law firm or foreclosing company. And then if you notice right after that, it says notice of a trustee sale. So what happened was this guy didn't make his mortgage payment. It went into foreclosure. They transferred the trustee on the deed of trust. The trustee says, you know what? I'm foreclosing on him. Notice of trustee sale. They recorded on December 19th. And it tells you right here that this property is going to go to sell on March 19th, 2024. Okay. So
3 days after.
after the notice was recorded. Okay, the 19th of December, going to sell on March 19th. Okay. This is where they're going to go to the county courthouse and they're going to sell this note to the highest bidder. And they're going to take their money and they're going to satisfy what they have and do other legal stuff. Now it gets even better here. Number 9 right here, we show a judgment. Okay, so this guy has a judgment that was just recorded in 2024. So it's very, very fresh. And do we have a copy of that?
You have a senior.
This one is Andrew Johnson Senior and our guy is Andrew Johnson. So what we have to do then is determine if they are one and the same party.
And I'll give you a good example. My name is Arthur C. Tabaka Jr. I normally go by Art C. Tabaka. My father lives here in town. He's Arthur C. Tabaka, but he's not Arthur C. Tabaka Sr. He's just Arthur C. Tabaka. I'm Arthur C. Tabaka Jr. My son is Arthur C. Tabaka III with a Roman numeral. And then his son is Arthur C. Tabaka IV, but he's only 6 years old. Okay. But I go by Art C. Tabaka. My dad goes by Art C. Tabaka. My son goes by Art C. Tabaka. So we need to know and
Don't do that. Don't do that to your
and just for reality, when I was younger, of course, we don't always handle our money the best when we're young, right? My dad went to get a loan and they told him he didn't qualify for a loan. And he's like, what do you mean? I think he got the wrong guy. I think he got my son. And that's what happened. So we had to go through and verify who he was so that he could get the loan he needed. But that's common. This happens a lot. And this could be the same guy. He just doesn't have senior on the documentation. It happens all the time. And unfortunately, this is our guy.
We know.
We know because we had to work on it that this is our guy. So they're settling here. And a lot of times what we will do when we get a judgment like this, we'll contact the party. Most times they acknowledge it. If it's theirs, they'll say, yeah, it's mine. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, do you want to call them? Because we don't know what kind of conversation we have. We don't know what this debt entails. We don't know how long it's been going on. You know, some people say, I'm not paying nobody nothing. But if they don't, we can't sell the property because we're insurance is going to be taken care of. So I like to give them the opportunity to say, hey, maybe you want to call your creditor and negotiate a pay down or something, negotiate a lower amount. You know, I mean, the last thing I want to do is call the creditor up and say, hey, yeah, Andrew's selling the property. How much money do you need from him? You know, and Andrew's going to say, well, wait a minute. I was going to negotiate it with them. And it just becomes a big shit show. But yeah, so that's what we do. We get, and then we have, do we have the judgment here?
Yeah, it's after the time.
Okay. So normally what we do when we see something like this, we'll go, and this is where Melissa was talking about this 2024. Normally this is a blue link right here. If you had the actual document, this is just a PDF we scanned in, so the links aren't active on it. But if you were to click on this right here, it would actually pull up the document, which we have.
Probably should have done separate tabs and did on that.
But it's fun to watch the scroll. There.
Okay, so here it is here. Okay. So we went and we actually contacted the seller and he acknowledged that it was him. And if you notice here, this is actually from Florida. If I remember right, it was in Florida. Minnesota. So this is actually a lawsuit that was done in Minnesota against this individual and his company. And they knew he was in Arizona, so they filed it in Arizona court. And it became a lien in Arizona. Because when we search title, we only search Arizona. We don't care what's in Florida. We don't care what's in California, because we're just dealing with Arizona properties. They normally own, and every now and then they do a what's that when they go? Well, they run the actual individual and see if there's anything else out there that
The
might be out
national
there. The
database.
national database, yeah. Okay, but this one here was actually recorded. It was the judgment was actually done in Minnesota, but it was recorded in Arizona. Okay. And that's how we were able to find it and locate it and acknowledge that it's our individual. And we have to satisfy this. If we don't satisfy this and we close, it becomes the buyer's responsibility, and the buyer's going to come back to us and say, hey, Art, this judgment should have been paid off, taken care of, released when you close our transaction for us. I got title insurance. I need you to take a look into it and see. We're going to look into it. And we're going to see, hey, it was on title. Yep, we should have got it taken care of. We should have got it released.
Then we get a big title loss.
And then we get a big title off. Okay. Yeah. So we always want to get these things taken care of. Always, always, always. And that's the main reason we have you guys buy title insurance for your clients, because this is going to protect them from anything when they take title past in the past. It's going to take care of anything like that. Okay. Any judgments, any taxes, any because sometimes what happens is we'll pay off a mortgage and the mortgage company gets the money, but they forget to do the last step, which is to file the release. And then that happens, and he goes to sell a property. He comes back and says, hey, Art, we closed on you, so we got to do our due diligence. We got to verify we paid the mortgage off. And then we got to do it. What we do is in an indemnity. We did indemnity, basically we're saying, yeah, we paid off. We're insuring you that it's not going to come back and you're going to have to pay a loss, but we actually took care of it. We got proof that we took care of it. It happens on occasion. That just because someone just dropped the ball and didn't do the last step of recording the release. This shows us who our attorney is. That shows us what the judgment is. Now, here's the problem that we have that happens a lot is if you notice right here, it has his name, Andrew Harris, has a social security number. They blacked out the social security number. It has his date of birth. But it doesn't actually have the date. It just has the month and the year. So we have an identity statement that we have him complete, which he would provide his social security number. He would provide his date of birth. But since they blacked this out and X'd out the date, we still can't confirm whether it's our guy or not. So we would have to call the law firm because they obviously have it on record. So we would call them and we would say, hey, we got an Andrew Harris. You guys are showing a judgment on it. Can you verify whether it's our individual or not? They normally ask us for the date of birth or social security number. They'll look it up and they'll say, yeah, that's our guy, or nope, outright social security number. They don't match. Yeah, that's normally what we'll do. We know this is our guy. He's admitted to it. He told us, yeah, that's me. So we're working and getting on payoff on this one. It's already been ordered from them. We're just waiting them for the law firm to do their legal fees and everything else and send us a payoff amount. Okay. Just to give you a little in depth here about the statement of identity is what we use, and I'm not sure if any of you have seen this before. This is the statement of identity that we ask. You have something? Okay. That we ask here, and we ask for the full names. We need to know if there's a middle name. And if you look in here, a lot of people miss this. But if you look in here, it says full middle name, please, if none indicate. A lot of people don't put anything in here, so we don't know. Does he not have a middle name, or do you just forget to put a middle initial in there? So that's why we ask them to put none if they have no middle name. That way we know they don't have a middle name. My mom does not have a middle name. Dolores Cedabaga, she has no middle. I tell her because they were poor, they couldn't afford a middle name. She was growing up. Okay, but yeah, it's going to ask you your full name, social security number, ever filed bankruptcy, date of birth, live in the USA since when, citizen, yes, no. Then it's going to ask for the second person. Normally would be your spouse. Same questions. Driver's license, date of marriages, and all this comes into play because someone could have got a judgment when they were married and then they got divorced, and both person, if this happened to me when I got divorced, I can't remember which one it was,
One of them.
but one of them, and me and my.
I'll tell you later tonight.
But me and my ex, we had an account that was actually, it was her doing, not mine. So I was able to go to the credit company and tell them, hey, this is not mine, this is theirs, and and they end up taking it and making her responsible for it, not me. But that's why we ask this information, because these judgments are sometimes just limited. Sometimes it's just a name, and maybe if you're lucky, it has an address. I've got a question in the back.
Yes, and sometimes the judgment will say, Andrew Harris and
Jane Doe.
or Jane Doe.
Yeah.
So we have to determine if
I think
his wife is in fact the one that they're dealing with on their judgment.
Very weird question.
Yes, it wasn't a question. Yeah.
Exactly. Precisely.
yeah. So this here, and some people try to refuse to fill this out.
That's a bad idea.
If they do not fill this out, I can't go forward. I can't go forward with my transaction. We can't close if we don't have this filled out. We have to have this filled out. Something I will tell you, and I try to make sure to all my clients, they need to understand this information is just for us to clear title. We're not going to sell their information to anybody. We're not transferring the information to anybody. We're going to put it on file. We're going to clear the title issue, and then we're going to dispose of it.
And we do only ask for it if title makes the call, if it's something like this where there is a judgment or it's a very common last name,
Right.
Smith, Jones, Martinez,
Well, yeah.
anything real common, they're gonna ask for it.
Right, and that's because, like I was telling you before, with my name, Art Baca, there's three of us. I mean, there could be a judgment against my son, and I'm trying to sell my house, and they think it's me, and I got to verify that it's not me. So it happens a lot. It's very common, but most times it's usually not our party, because if it is, usually our party will say, yeah, I know I got this judgment, it's going to come up on title. So it happens a lot of times when they do refines or something like that, they'll know they have something on title. Okay. It's going to ask for your residences in the last year. Again, this goes back to maybe all we have on that judgment is an address. So we need to know where they were in the last 10 years so we can reference it by maybe just the address is all we have on the judgment to verify them. Going to ask you occupations as well, so we can get an idea of what cities you were living in at the time. And then ask for previous marriages again. It goes back to, like I was stating before, when me and my wife got divorced. So they know whether it's you or not. Okay. Then they're going to ask for a phone number, signature. Then you're going to send it to us. We're going to send it to title, and then they're going to verify it. They're going to run it through. Because when you get a name like Jim Jones, there's probably hundreds of thousands of judgments against Jim Jones, and they got to run it through. And that's why it's more helpful. The more information they have, they can put in their database, and it'll filter out quicker. So they're not spending 4 days trying to figure out if this is our Jim Jones or not. Okay. Now let's go back up to any questions? Anybody?
There aren't any questions.
All right.
Questions from the gallery?
Any questions? Okay. So let's go back up here to our commitment now. Where we at?
There we are.
Okay. So there's the judgment again. And again, this one was pretty ugly, but we do our due diligence and we get it done and we move past it, and it is what it is. Next one, number 10, that's where we're going to go to the warranty deed. This is the warranty deed. This is what's recorded. This is what's going to actually convey the property ownership from Andrew Johnson to the new buyers. Okay. And then we're going to record the deed of trust, securing the lien on the property. Now, again, all these requirements right here, basically 6 through 11, are the requirements we have to do. That's why they're called requirements, because we're required to verify them, acknowledge them, and satisfy them before we can proceed. And then this is also what our recording instructions are, because these are the instructions that we have to do in order to get to the bottom and record the warranty deed and the deed of trust, conveying property. Next, we're going to go to our exceptions. Our exceptions are things that we will not insure against because we don't have any control over them. Easements, utility easements, water easements, right of way, taxes, CCNRs, we can't control CCNRs. There was a time that CCNRs actually had verbiage in there that said no Mexicans, no Chinese, no African Americans, and that was before the civil rights and all that stuff, but they're still recorded. They're no longer valid with that verbiage in there, but that verbiage is still in there, unfortunately. You know, those are things we can't insure again because those are recorded and we have no control over them. We have no control over the easements, the right of way, the utilities. These here are just different liabilities here, law violations, building permits, zoning encroachment. Those are all things that.
Those are all standard.
those are all
How often do you guys see that you pay out on those type of? I mean, it says a deductible of 1%, but have you seen any recent cases on any of those, or they popping up again with the fraud stuff by any chance? No?
I haven't seen any.
We don't see them because we're removed
Oh,
from
gotcha.
claims.
All
It's a
corporate.
whole corporate thing.
Yeah.
But there is a greater increase with the vacant land fraud.
Right.
That's what I was figuring, there would be something with all the fraud going on.
Yeah.
Question on the judgments.
Sure.
If the judgments is more than what they can get out of like selling the house or all the money that they're gonna get from the house, what happens to that judgment?
It doesn't go away. They have to come up with the money to close it. Or they have-
They,
Like once the buyer, is the buyer still free and clear?
so the judgment creditor may release the property, but a judgment stays with the person's
Right.
name. So if the judgment is recorded and the creditor agrees to release our property, they can still have it as a lien to attach to
another property.
the person and or another property.
Does
Yeah.
the creditor have the option to like not release the property if,
They absolutely do.
and then it can't be sold?
No,
Correct.
correct.
Unless
That's
the
right.
seller can come up with the cash.
The difference, yeah. And that happens at times, where they have to come in with 10 grand, 20 grand. I've seen them come in with 50 grand before they close. The seller had to come in with money to close. I mean,
Yeah, or the
and-
seller may have to pay.
Yeah.
I had a transaction that had a $56 million criminal restitution lien that was my seller. And it was filed by the United States government. The guy was running a Ponzi scheme and he was facing prison. The United States government did agree to release the property to right some of the people that had been harmed, so they could get some money back. So the US government released our property, and then the guy's gonna serve his prison.
And they were all.
Yeah, well.
And also on judgments, they just changed the law.
A year ago,
A
a little over a year ago.
year ago. It used to be 5 years. After 5 years, if they're not renewed, they would fall off. And then whoever the creditor, they'd have to go back to court again and get a new judgment. They changed that law now to 10 years and they made it proactive. So if yours is almost hitting the 5 year mark, it now got changed to 10. I've seen some fall off after 5 years, but now if you're not grandfathered in, if you had the judgment prior to that and it was like getting to the 5 year mark, it's 10 years now. So regardless, so now 10 years. After 10 years, if they don't renew it, it goes away. They have to refile again. To renew it, they just go to the court and they say, hey, we want to renew this judgment. The guy's never paid us. He still owes us. We want to keep this judgment in force. They'll go with it and they'll get a renewal judgment from the courts and they'll record that. And that puts another 10 years on it from when that's recorded. Okay.
And that's important to know because prior to that, after 5 years, if it was a showing on our title commitment and it was a 6-year-old judgment, we could out it by time. We could say, we're not paying that because of time.
Right.
But now it's
Okay.
10 years. So if it's been 6 years, we still have to show it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. What else we got here? Then we go down, then here's the exceptions, okay? Like I was telling you, these are the exceptions right here. It says right there. Part 2 exceptions. These are things that we cannot insure, okay? Because we don't control them again. Defects and liens on prime encumbrances, first time commitment, a public recorder, taxes and assessments, and existing liens. Any facts, right, interest or claims are not shown on public record. If it's something not a public record, there's no way for us to find out about it. So let's just say me and Roberta have a verbal agreement, we have a handshake agreement. She's gonna pay me 10 grand when she sells her house, and she sells her house and she reneges on our agreement, doesn't pay me the 10 grand. I can try to go to the title company, but the title company is gonna just tell me, hey, we're really sorry, but there was nothing of public record. I can't insure something that I don't know about again. This goes back again to, this was out of the title company's control. There's nothing they could do about it. They had no knowledge of the agreement between the two of us, and there was nothing recorded to make it public record that there was something between us. I mean, and that happens on occasion too, but we normally don't hear about those because it's between two individuals. Again, easements, liens, encumbrances, public records, we can't control that. Borderlines, conflict of borderlines, encroachments and stuff. Somebody builds over your property. I know we've had to deal with that before. Reservation, mining claims, stuff like that. Normally the government keeps the rights to all this. When they patented their property back in 1800s and they started parceling out these properties, a lot of the government, they kept the rights to the mining and stuff for mineral, uranium, gas, you know, you name it, they kept that right to that because they want the money. So that's what they did. Any lien or services for labor and material, okay? These are just mechanics liens, that kind of stuff. The taxes for 2024, you know, we're showing that they are current though, but there's going to be an exception on there. Same thing with the water district. And then again, here, easements right here for the CCNRs. Looks like easement restrictions, reservation conditions, setback lines, that kind of stuff. It'd be recorded in this book 20 of maps and plats, page 49. Again, normally this would be a link. You could just click on it and it would pull that map up for you. Again, talked about CCNRs, covenants, conditions, and restrictions. Again, they would have a link right here. This one here was, doesn't have the date it was recorded, but it was probably recorded a while back. Okay. And the new ones, they still state now that you can't be of race, religion, sex, that kind of stuff there. And it goes back to what I was telling you about before, some of those other ones that reference no Mexicans and no Chinese, or, you know, and unfortunately, like I said, back in the day that they actually had,
They were.
they were, yeah. Talking about easements here, aerial, so that'd be like power lines, stuff like that. Claims to water, again, if they find water on there, normally the government's gonna keep that, but normally you'd be hooked up to city anyway. On occasion, if you're in a rural area, you would have a well or well rights from somebody else's property usually. And then right of tenants on the land. Okay, that's like okay. And then what else we got here? I think it should be good there. Okay, that's all the exceptions. And next we have the legal description.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, for exceptions, that's a section as a realtor that it's really important for you to look at. If you know that your buyer has something very specific in mind. I had a transaction where it had a 20-foot easement over the backyard for the high power lines. And turns out the backyard was like 25 feet deep. This buyer wanted to build a pool and was looking specifically for a property where they could build a pool. I didn't have knowledge to this, but they had talked to their agent about it. So when the title commitment came out, nobody looked at the exceptions, and I don't know things. I don't know that this is what they want to do. So I don't know to tell them, hey, here's this easement. So it's very important, if you know your buyer has something special in mind, look at those exceptions. If there's something they can't live with, then they shouldn't go on with the transaction.
So they had easement like into like deep within the property, right?
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
20 feet into their yard so they could access the high power lines.
Wow. And they can't because of that they control.
They can put a pool.
Yeah. And some parts of like older Phoenix might have an easement for access to utilities, and you buy the house, you want to build a fence. Well, you can't because they need to have access. So it's an important section. It doesn't sound like it's real important, but it is if it's something specific your buyer's looking for.
And you can build over it, but if they have to come in and repair something, they tear it down and they do not have to replace it.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times they do nowadays, but depending on who you
Turn that around.
depending on who you make mad, you know, they might just say screw it and not repair it at all, you know. But yeah, if they come in and have an easement, they can tear it up and not have to replace it, not have to put the wall back or anything. So that's another thing to consider. So any questions now? Anybody?
No.
we're gonna have to go back and review this video, because it's, I can see so many things.
And when in doubt, ask.
Right, especially since now, due to the economy, due to everything, due to the price point, we're gonna start seeing a lot of more manufactured homes with land and more affordable housing options, right?
Right.
There's already a demand. I have never done mobile homes or manufactured homes.
Mhm.
In this last 3 months, I got 6 of them.
Well, and that's another good point to bring up. If it's a manufactured home on land,
Yes.
then we do title insurance. If it's a manufactured home in a park, we're not title insuring it because they're not getting real property. They're only getting personal.
They're renting the space and
Yeah.
stuff.
And I've noticed when these lands, previous people that own lands and have easements, we have that specific scenario right now where they subdivided the land. So there's an easement for the people in the back to come
Right
through
away,
the property
right away.
in order to get to their own house.
Right.
So I'm starting to see it more and more. So we're gonna have to look at. Is there a
Review.
part two?
And some of the rural areas, I worked in Prescott and Chino Valley and all that up there. Access is a big deal. You want to make sure there is an easement for access on your buyer's property.
And that also becomes another title issue because when we insure, we're insuring ingress and egress to the property, which means you have access to the property. It does happen at times where people get landlocked if they're not paying attention.
That was my
they'll
next question.
They get landlocked.
Yep.
They get landlocked, and when you get landlocked, you're gonna have to buy the right of way from one of those people. And you're gonna have to convince them.
Yeah, and if those neighbors don't want to get it,
They
give
don't
it.
have- they don't have-
You're
they don't
not
have
getting
to-
it.
So here's a question. I don't want to deviate from the subject,
It's still the subject.
but I have a listing, right? Or my buyers are getting a property with that has an easement in order to be able to get, right away.
Right.
What, as an agent, what do I need to do, or what can I do to make sure that is protected, right? Because it did happen to us where somebody said like, no, this is my land, and they ended up fencing, and it was a whole mess.
When you get the title report, you should be able to get a copy of the plat map, and the plat map should have on there the right of way. Normally, it's gonna be, I think, was it 10 feet or 12 feet? Gotta be, I think, 10 feet wide. The
And in the
access.
exceptions, you'll see an easement for ingress and egress.
It'll say-
And
it'll
if
say-
there is no access, the title officer should put in there that there is
There's-
no access. We
right.
cannot insure for access.
And new buyers that might come into the property that are owns the actual easement part of it. Do they have can they refuse that, or is that like inherited and the new buyers have to respect?
Depends on the way the easement's written.
Yeah,
It might say specifically between these two parties,
yes,
these two parties agree access.
yeah, because that's what you see a lot, like in Tonopah and stuff like that.
Right.
Mhm.
yeah.
If it's a general one, it will say that it's access is granted. But if it's between two parties, then you have to go back, the new buyer has to go back and renegotiate with the seller or with the neighbor.
The guy who has the right of way across his land, yeah.
Thank you for answering.
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna go a step further. Easements are not a document, they're not a title document. It's not something that we draw. It's not something we can generate. So typically what I see is they get either the realtor, I wouldn't want to take it on as a realtor, but sometimes a realtor's comfortable with handling that, or an attorney
They're
to
good
get
real
involved
attorney
with
to
access.
handle that documentation for them, yeah. But that could be, and I've seen it happen before where they didn't have access to the property. I've seen it where an owner has split the property and they've taken the back property and they forgot to grant themselves. They forgot to grant them themselves easement, they ended up landlocking themselves. And then they gotta negotiate to the person that they sold the property to,
That's crazy.
and hopefully it was a good transaction, not a bad one. I had one way back in the day
You're like,
where
"Remember?"
where they had a well, it was in a rural area, they had a well on the property. The guy that owned the property had the well dug and drilled and everything and pumped and everything put on there. And when he sold the property, he didn't realize that he sold the property with the well on it, and he didn't get the rights from the guy that he sold it to. and he was a real prick to the guy that he sold it to.
Yeah.
He made that seller pay him 20 grand
Oh.
to make it
To
right.
share the
That,
wealth.
that he had paid and had put in. But see, it just pays to be
Double
nice,
payment.
yeah. But yeah, those things kind of happen, okay? This one here shows here now, this page here is our exhibit A. This is the legal description. It's telling us it's in Pima County, in the state of Arizona. This one here is a lot subdivision. It's lot 13 of Abra Ranchettes. Pima County, it's recorded in book 20 of maps and page 49 in that book of maps. Next, we're gonna go to is, I think that's pretty much
That's
it.
it, should be,
Pretty much
except for
it.
standard.
Yeah. Well, here's
Oh,
the
there's a
map.
plat.
Here's a map here. The lot, and you can see our lot is right here, lot 13. That's right there.
And this is a map of a subdivided property. If it's a sectional or meets and bounds description, you may not get a map to the property.
Right.
Because once they subdivide it, they create a map. Otherwise, there's no map.
And
Then
plat maps are always, for sections, right? Or are they like, they can be
They're
for
for both.
multiple sections?
they're for any type of land that's been, actually any type of land.
Yeah.
That's for the plat map. But once you go to divide it or to, when like this one here, you put road on it now. Cause it was just, at one time it was just raw land. Maybe to have this road here and this road right here. Well, then they decided to put a road right in here, which they put an easement for this roadway. Then they take this parcel, which originally was probably like this parcel right here, and then they took it and they split it into all these different lots right here. And then they took this lot and they split it into 2 more lots right here. You see these 2 right here.
Yeah.
So the plat map, every time they do this, you record a plat map showing how the land has changed from this parcel to this split parcel now. Right away, you've seen here, this one has a drainage on it here. So right here, drainage way. Okay, so I mean, there's a document in here, easement for this drainage way that's recorded, giving the right for that drainage way,
Also means nobody should ever vote.
on that.
It's pretty important.
Or you might have a hard time getting insurance. And that shows, and this shows the details, it shows you the roadways on here, okay? Which we were talking about earlier, and the exceptions.
And these 3 larger parcels may be developed in the future into a subdivision.
Right, yeah. Or they might just be split in half and, the guy keeps one side and he sells the other side. Depends on what their goal is or what they want to do. And we'll go down here some more, that's that map, let's see what else we got here. And then that's pretty much it, it's just explaining the policy and commitment. That legal jargon stuff, definitions. That's pretty much it on commitment right here. Okay. Now, the other thing we wanted to talk about also was touch live on vacant land, you said, and the fraud. And I got a call on Friday afternoon from a client who's buying a house here. I'm handling their purchase here. They're selling a house in California. And they called me at 5 o'clock. Say, hey, Art, did you send us an email about your wine instructions? I'm like, what? They said, yeah, we got an email from you saying that you had updated wire instructions. I'm like, no, I've never. She goes, well, and what they ended up doing, somehow they got my email. They were able to copy and paste my signature line, my picture, all my stuff, and they took it and they put it on another email to make it look like it was coming from me and put different wire instructions on it. And luckily the people were smart enough to say, hey, let me call, and then I recalled the escrow officer in California today just to make sure that we're still on the same page, make sure that she still has my wire instructions. We know everything, we've been verified because she verified them like last Tuesday, I think. So she's all good, but I mean, it's out there, it's happening.
And as an agent, it's critical. I know you have documentation in your paperwork, but it's critical that you don't ask me for my wire instructions to pass on to your client. We will only send it direct to the client. Make sure your client knows not to accept wire instructions from their lender, from their agent, from anyone in the agent's office. And always, always, always call the escrow officer from the number to the number on the purchase contract, not on an email. Call that phone number that's on the purchase contract to verify those instructions.
Yeah.
Never, ever, ever let your client send money without talking to us first.
Right. Okay, so that's to live on the fraud now. Do you want to touch on the vacant land a little bit?
I'll touch on vacant land. So vacant land, I'm sure you've heard, vacant land fraud is rampant in the industry. Coming from up north, we ran into it a lot. We have set a protocol for our escrow officers on a vacant land transaction. It's important for the agents to know because on a rare occasion, it could hold up closing, but we're gonna send an opening letter to the seller at the address on file with the county where the tax bill sent. We're gonna Federal Express that letter to make sure we know it was delivered. Then we're gonna verify in escrow by search engines that let us search the name. We're gonna ask for 2 forms of ID. We're gonna wanna know, compare signatures of the current deed the seller signing versus when they acquired title to the property. We're gonna do all this due diligence. If we're wiring, we need to make sure that we're wiring to the proper people to help eliminate vacant land fraud. It's out there, it's happening, it's terrifying, especially in my seat. But all we can do is verify it the best we can.
Do our due diligence and try to protect everybody. That's all we can do.
I've seen multiple transactions where an agent asked me to look at her proposed seller's foreign ID and make sure that it was a valid ID. And when searching it, we have ways to search through Google. In searching it, it looked like it could be valid. There were just a couple of little nuances that were different. We then took it a step further and found the actual owner of the property, not the man she was dealing with, that found that they live in Salt Lake City. Went a step further, found their business so that we could call them and ask them if they were selling a piece of vacant land in Prescott, and turned out they weren't. So if you have questions, always reach out to your escrow officer or us if we're not your escrow officer. To do some research. This particular agent had spent several $100s on photos and research to get this listing live. And she was just about to make it live when she reached out to me to do some research. And it was a fraudulent seller.
She got that money.
She was out that money. So yeah, definitely on vacant land, do your due diligence, have someone else do some due diligence. Land fraud is out there. It's prevalent.
Yeah. So, and we'll also have we have an affidavit that the seller will have to sign certifying that they are the seller and they are agreeing to sell that land. And again, that is to protect us. So if they try to come back later on and say, hey, I wasn't the seller of this land, we're gonna say, well, you signed the document saying that you were, so there's nothing we can do to help you with that.
Okay.
But yeah.
At a different title company, an escrow officer hadn't watched her videos of how to avoid land fraud. Transaction closed. A couple of months later, the seller reached out to us, that title company that handled the transaction, to say, why is someone else building on my land? And that's a total title loss. That's an error. That's something we take a loss for.
Very
What
expensive.
happens there? Like, did the seller get his land back, or did he just get?
I'm not sure how it played out, but the seller definitely needs to get compensated.
Of
Either get the land back, but now somebody's built on it and it might not be what he's wanted for a building.
Yeah.
So the seller has to be made whole. And
It's an
Is it
inconvenience to the
financial?
buyer then.
it's an inconvenience to everyone. And yeah, the buyer had, possibly building their dream home, and turns out they don't own that land.
Yeah, they happen. Unfortunately, there's nightmares out there. I'm glad I don't really know any.
There's this thing called ex-wife, my man.
Ex-wives.
Right? Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that story. That was a good one. Which one? I've only been married 3 times, right? I've only been divorced twice.
So there's options.
So there's options. Okay.
Do you guys have any questions here?
Any questions?
No, I just wanted to add to that because I was at JP Morgan Chase for 5 years, and that wire fraud, we unfortunately would get one at least I don't know, every 5-10 transactions. It's out there, and it was, so always instruct your buyers to not just open emails and just wire. Let's make sure that it is who they're wanting to wire from, because sometimes the letters went something like this. The numbers have changed. Your wire instructions have changed. Please click here for the new instructions. And sometimes they didn't even ask their realtor or anybody, and they would just go ahead and wire. It was so much loss. So yes, it's out there.
Yeah, it's out there, and you know, you as an individual have to do your due diligence and just, you know, question, make a phone call. Doesn't cost anything to make a phone call, call that escrow officer and find out, hey, just like my people did on me, they called me, did you send me new instructions? You know, and they could tell because my email background is usually white, has my picture on it, has my signature line. Well, the email they got had a black background on it, but it still had my signature line, so it looked a little different. And if you look at the actual email address, you can tell what didn't come from ROC Title at all. I had a completely different email address on it. So, but I mean, if you're not paying attention or you get too much of in a hurry, that's when it can happen.
Well, it may be a Gmail, and they may think that you have a Gmail account. And
Right.
You guys are
No.
already.
Yep. So, any other questions? Anybody?
Bueller.
Bueller.
All right.
All right. So,
Well, thank you guys for joining us.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
It was interesting.
Hopefully it was a little enlightening, and you know, if you have any other questions, feel free to give us a call. We're definitely here to help you with any questions you might have. If you just want some more knowledge on these title things, we're here to help with that as well. So, and if you would like something in addition or so forth, do not hesitate to reach out to us and let us know. Okay?
Thank you so
all very
much.
You're very
Thank you.
welcome. Thank you all.
Thank you. You
Yeah,
guys were
very-
great.
It was
Thank you.
wonderful. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you. You guys have a great day, okay?
You too.
too.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
And then it's close- it's okay.
There.